Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Raconteurs News. It is Tuesday. It's the 5th of July already. My God, I don't know where this time's going. It's probably due to the speed of light speeding up over the last few years, but time just seems to fly by, and already we're in July. I'm Jason Holmes, and you're listening to Raconteurs News on raconteursnews.com. And as usual, we've got the rudder that steers Raconteurs News with me. It's Andy. How are you doing, Andy?
Oh, I'm doing great, Jason. Really excited because tonight not turned out to be quite what we expected, but having just witnessed a miracle on Skype a few minutes ago, I'm really excited about telling our listeners about that. And it's along the lines of one of our favourite subjects, a certain magical plant. We'll leave that for there now, though, because our planned guest, Prescilla,
Sorry.
unfortunately, Prescilla can't stay with us too long tonight. So let's introduce singer and songwriter Prescilla Una. Good evening, Prescilla.
Good evening. How are you guys?
Very good. Yeah, we're very good, dear Priscilla. And how are you over there in Canada?
I'm doing great here. We just finished up Canada Day, so there's tons of fireworks here. A great excuse to party and drink.
I think there were certain people that were calling it. I noticed on Facebook, some of the Canadian friends on my Facebook account were calling it Cannabis Day. Displaying a Canadian flag in green with instead of a maple leaf in the middle, it had a cannabis leaf. But that's for another. Well, that's for later on, I think. Well, we'll get into what you're doing at the moment. So, how's about you give us a bit of an introduction of yourself and how you came to be doing the things that you're doing?
All right. So I was born and raised in Toronto, and I also started my music career in Toronto. Officially, I started my professional music career in around, I'd say, 2012. But before that time, I was always in music in school, singing since I was 5 years old, in jazz and classical band in school since the age of 11. My first instrument was actually the flute. It wasn't even the guitar. I just recently put up the guitar about 8-9 years ago. And basically, I hit rock bottom in 2012. And before that time, I was always writing music, but I never thought I would ever, in my wildest dreams, have a career in music. And,
when you say you hit rock bottom, can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. I was going through a huge transitional stage in my life, and I was going through a lot of life-changing, life-altering things in my life. And when you go through certain things in your life, it really makes you a different person. And, before heading into the music career professionally, I was quite happy, working just a regular full-time job like most of us do. But when I was going through all these changes, I felt that I owed it to myself and I owed it to God and the universe to really fulfill my dreams and do what I do best, which is music, and share my passion with the world.
Well, that's so you've come to a sort of crossroads in your life,
right,
and you feel as though that things happening in your life are not quite the way that you would like them to be.
right.
But it's the music that's really sort of drawn you out of that, and I think music does do that, doesn't it?
Right, exactly, and most people listen to it as therapy, but that's why I call my day job music therapy, because when I was writing throughout the 8-9 years that took to write all those songs and to compose them, it really literally was my therapy. And if it wasn't for music, I don't know if I'd be here right now. So again, that's why I really owe music so much. And I feel that with my passion and my love for music, I can really affect the people that hear my music. So that's my goal, really, to help people with my music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, I've been so busy. I've not really been able to do the due diligence that I really should have done. What sort of music is it that you play, and what's your process, and where do you play?
Mm-hmm. Originally, when I started out, I was doing a lot of classical and jazz, but that was when I wasn't taking my music serious, and I never thought at that point that I would go into that genre, because I love playing it, but it wasn't my ultimate favorite. My debut album is actually a mixture of rock, jazz, EDM, and acoustic. So it has those sounds. But sometimes when people hear my music, they kind of categorize me into this one niche market. And I'm an artist that really likes to bounce around different types of genres. I like to mix different genres together. So I'm currently working on my second album called Enlightened. And I'm not going to speak too much about it, but I'm really excited to wrap that up and to share it with the world. I have a few other projects also coming around my way. And yeah, it's just going to be really interesting, really innovative sounds. For 2016 onward, I'm really excited to share that.
I understand you've been doing a few festivals as well.
I have. My recent one was Long Branch Fest over in Southern Ontario, and that was a few weeks ago. My next event coming up is on July 29th in Toronto. So the best way to kind of follow up with me is through social media. So if you go on Facebook or my website, prescillamusic.com, that's where I update everything. So you'll be able to follow me and check out what I'll be playing and what songs I'm working on.
I absolutely love the name you've given your record label, Prescilla.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I mean, that's something I think many of us who are part of Raconteurs News, and I'm sure many of our listeners are seeking peaceful revolution music. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. When I was thinking about a name, I really wanted something that would really not only capture the attention, but would really hold true to my ultimate mission with music. And it's really to create a positive change. And it doesn't mean that, my lyrics are not explicit, that I do have a few lines and a few words I use that I do swear. So it's not about being happy-go-lucky, but you know what I mean? But at the same time, at the end of the day, the main mission is to create positivity around the world, and that's we for sure need more of that. There's so much negativity, and I want to be a part of positivity.
Well, at the end of when you have to go, Priscilla, I was toying which song to play, whether to play I Am or Revolution, because I think they're two of my favourites from the album that you sent me. But obviously, if I play I Am, I'm not going to play the radio edit. I'm going to play the full version.
Okay. I like that. Getting all risque.
Oh, yeah. We don't go along with...
The original does have swearing in it.
Yeah, we don't go along with political correctness. And
that's great. I love that.
When people are passionate, the odd expletive slips out. And it's perfectly understandable. I've got a question.
At the end of the day, swearing, and it's all about self-expression, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, we've got a question for you from Kevin in the chat room, and he's asking, does your music and the lyrics revolve around your life experiences?
That's a really good question, and it does. If you listen to the album or any of my tracks very carefully, you can hear a tone of truthfulness. I think it's really tough for an artist to kind of write when they haven't experienced something. And I really write from the heart, and I write from experiences. It doesn't mean that I won't create something in the future that is creative in a different style. I might want to play around with that in the future because I like to expand on what I do. But with my debut album, it is, all from life experience and really specifically on relationships I was going in and out of and heartbreak. And I think we all can relate to those type of that type of content as humans, because love is such a powerful feeling. And also with Revolution, that you brought up there, Prescilla. Andy, was that you, Andy, that brought that song title?
Yeah, that was me.
Was that you? Yeah. So with Revolution, that song was written after I got fired from work, right? And I was writing about the injustices of that whole scenario, and being a woman in a very male-dominated industry at that time. I was writing about that. So yeah, each song is very truthful and it resonates on a very personal level. And again, if you listen to each song very carefully, I'm 100% sure that everybody can relate to it.
Mm-hmm. You said you were a woman in a very male-dominated industry. What was that?
I don't want to go too far into detail, but with Revolution, I was writing about, being fired from work. So basically, I had two specific jobs, one in the banking industry and one in the insurance industry. Uh-huh. And my team was always filled with men, and I work well with men. Don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy, being in a team full of men. But at the same time, sexism is still an issue. Still being in 2016 doesn't mean that it still doesn't exist. It's important to be aware that it does, no matter how minute it could be. Mm-hmm. But it was really fun. I love challenges, and that's exactly why I'm in the music industry, because it's such a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Well, it really is. It's really, really challenging, and it's got me waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning every single day because I'm so excited.
Wow. Well, I suppose in the music industry, everyone's treated as an individual and treated on their own merits.
Is that a question or a statement?
Both.
Well, to a certain degree, I think people are judged on their own merits, but I think there are a lot of talented people out there that never really get heard because the arts have become so sterile in recent years that I think it's time that real artists started taking the arts back, because I think that it's a huge. If you go back to sort of 60s and 70s and 80s even, there were a lot of political commentary in music and a lot of protest singers and protest songs and things like that, which we seem to have lost.
I personally don't feel it's lost. If you're comparing like major label such as Universal and Sony in comparison to independent, which I am right now. Ultimately, as an artist, like there's two choices. You can be independent or you could go with a major label. Obviously, you'll have to be like scouted out or work super hard to become part of a major label. And that's my aspiration. Most definitely, I mean, any serious artist would want to aspire to connect themselves with a major label, because at the end of the day, you want to survive off of what you're doing. And it's important to be able to sustain yourself, obviously, as a professional, whether you be a doctor or a lawyer, a customer service worker or an artist. I mean, it's important to have some sort of stability. It doesn't mean that being an independent artist, you can't stabilize yourself. There are opportunities in the independent market, independent scene. And there's pros and cons to both, right? Mm-hmm. In regards to like the whole communication of like protesting and things like that, I really don't think that it has changed. I like here in Toronto, the music scene is so big, and I go to concerts like every single week, and the lyrics are very explicit, and they're talking about so many different types of topics. So no, I don't think it has gone. But I mean, in regards to the whole with the whole popularity or what becomes popular, or what becomes further marketed. I mean, those are two different subjects. What's popular, what's further marketed, because when you have like big money behind an artist, it's going to be easier for them to be more popular, right? So I think that's where the independent scene kind of is lacking. It's always been about finance, and how can you market new music when you don't have money to like market your work. But no, I think people are still writing about so many different types of topics, and it's still there. And I'm a huge believer for great music, whether it be popular or not. Doesn't matter if there's like a zillion hits or 10 hits. A great song is a great song, and that's my perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the music industry, I mean, there was so much passion and so much raw talent out there for all those years. But with the likes of, I don't know if you have these talent shows on Canadian TV, they seem to have taken over the music industry, and we don't get.
We've lost you a bit there, Andy.
Sorry, we get all these talent shows on TV, alleged talent shows, and it's all manufactured music. And I think if we can get away from that and get back to people succeeding purely on their merits, rather than whether they've got a sad story to tell that makes the TV audience cry, then we're going to get somewhere, don't you?
I personally don't think it has taken over. I feel that with those type of shows, it's just a form of entertainment, and music is music, whether it be put together by a group of artists, group of writers or not. I mean, it's still a type of music, and I'm sure a lot of people still resonate with those types of music. It just depends who resonates with it or who doesn't, right? And that's their business. But I think that's what really attracts me to the independent scene, because there's so much raw and unheard music. And so for me, it's really exciting to hear something that is really fresh and really great that nobody's ever heard of. Like for me, that's what gets me excited. And again, like it doesn't mean that like there's not like future opportunity for those artists. I mean, all of the pop artists that you see out now, they've all started independently. They all started like from like Katy Perry, for example. Like she started off like singing at like church choir and just doing her own little independent thing. And there are a lot of other bigger artists that didn't start off on TV. Like recently, like Adele, like she didn't have any type of, TV startup. But there's different ways of doing things, right? There's different ways. It really just depends on which way you want to take it. I have been approached a few times to do those type of TV performances and things like that. But for me, like I just didn't want to be a part of it for my own reasons. I just didn't want to be an artist that just kind of got discovered in that way, if that makes sense. So I'd rather just do my own independent thing and keep working hard at my craft.
And succeed organically. Try to as long as you're doing your thing. I've got a friend who's my best friend. He's a singer-songwriter, and he makes a living alongside his wife. They go to sing, but his real passion is making his own music, and for him, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks of it. To a certain extent, it's just something that he does. It's his baby, if you will. And I spent 25 years as a club DJ.
Oh, wow.
And I retired in 2013 from club DJing, and I retired simply because the music was just getting so sterile, and it was so samey, and the same people wanted the same things over and over again, and they weren't really interested in listening to anything new. And it's really difficult. So I don't know if you've come across that. Do you have a particular method? Do you How does it work? How does when you sit down, do you sit down to write something, or does something come into your head when you're perhaps doing something else and you try to remember it and then put it on paper at some later point? How do you do it?
Yeah,
Do you set yourself do you set yourself a task? Say, I'm going to write a song today, or is it just all inspirational led?
yeah. I want to get back to the point that you brought up being a DJ, and I have a bunch of Toronto DJs here that I'm friends with, and they say the same thing about the Toronto scene. So it sounds like the UK scene is the same, like where if you go to a club or a bar, they want to hear the same type of music, and my DJ friends say the exact same thing. They want to hear what's on the top 40s or what's popular on radio, and it's the same thing. And it's different in Miami. I hear like they're more open to different type of sounds. And again, like to each his or her own, right? Everybody like is entitled to like listen to what they want, and if they want to hear popular music or if they want to hear top 40s, that's okay. So back to you're asking about how I kind of compose a song. Okay, so each time it's quite different. Let's see an example from I have 10 tracks on my debut album, so I'll go in order, I guess. So first composition, sometimes basically with that song, it was literally my first composition on the guitar. So I had my guitar lesson from Maneli Jamal, and right now he's an international solo guitar player, and he's just phenomenal. He was my instructor. And I went home after that first lesson, and I wrote this song, and it just came out of me. And it felt like really natural. I had the guitar, and the guitar was always like a really solid foundation to compose like full songs. But mind you, like before I played guitar, I did play flute, and I did sing since I was a kid. So music was always something innate that was inside of me, and something that really came easily and naturally, and I felt that I was always great at. Let's see.
Would you say the inspiration, your inspiration comes from yourself, or I've noticed a lot of people, a lot of artists will say, they almost act as a conduit for something else, and it seems that it's given to them. It's the ideas and the inspiration is given to them, and they act as a conduit to make that into a material thing. I mean,
there have been times where I wake up from a dream and a sound is just in my head. So it does come from the universe or God or however you want to, describe the unknown. There have been times. And then other times, like with the song, like I Loved You, I was just crying in my room by myself, and I had my guitar, and I just wanted to express myself, and the best way to do it was to write a song. And lyrics came out. It took a good half hour, I would say. And there are some songs I nitpick on, like it would take months and months for me to be happy with like the exact structure. But with that song, it took half an hour, and it was literally like magic, and it just came out of me. I expressed what I had to express, and with tears on my paper, and a song came out. It was born. So yeah, each song for sure came out differently. There is no one way. There is no structure, and it just comes out. With I Am, I was fiddling around with a riff on my guitar, and I had like a music jam with a few of my guitar buddies, and we were listening to more like harder rock, and then I'm like, okay, let me try something harder, because usually at that time anyways, I was playing more more delicate chords and really soft or slower tempos. So I went, okay, let me try something new. And I came up with the bass initially, a bass line, which I recorded myself on the album. So the bass guitar and the lead guitar I played. And the riff just came out. So the riff came out before the lyrics, right? And it just made sense. So I was working on the riff, and it had like the first verse, and then it just developed and developed as the weeks went on. So that was like one song that took a few months to kind of work on, because I would sit on it for a while and then come back to it, right? So that song was a bit more worked on for sure. It took a few months to settle. So it could take 30 minutes. It could take 30 months. There is no specific way I like to do things. It just comes out when it does and how it does.
And how's things going at the moment? Are you able to make a living from just your music, or are you supplement your income in another way?
Yeah, it's been quite the challenge. I've been independent for a solid, it's going to be 4 years this year. And being independent does have its challenges. Am I able to survive? Yes, but not comfortably, because I feel like it's a constant hustle. Like I have to constantly seek new opportunities. And I think that's what makes me intrigued, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that the journey is just getting more interesting and more challenging as time goes on. And that makes me excited, because it's something worth grasping. And again, it's something that I feel like I was born to do and I was blessed to do. And I feel that I would be the best at doing it. And that's why I'm doing it. Again, like my ultimate goal most definitely be amazing to obviously be a part of a major label. But for the time being independent, it's great to, have my own label and also help other independent artists as well. There's like literally hundreds and hundreds in the city here. And I'm sure thousands all around the world. But I'm doing my part here in Toronto. So I love doing open mics. That's the one way I like to kind of help out. Since in Canada, the whole artist development scene, like it's not quite big because there's not a lot of profit in that scene. But at the same time, again, like I said, I love to hear independent music I've never heard before. And when the time comes, while these other artists are being developed, I'll be able to, hopefully make their dreams come true. That's my ultimate goal as having my own record label.
Mm-hmm. We've got a question here from Ken in the chat room. Ken's the guy who played our guitar intro there, and thanks for that, Ken. He's done quite a few songs for us. Very talented guitar player, and he's asking a question which kind of went over my head when he first put it in there, but he's explained in a bit more detail. He says, does Prescilla explore different modes? He says, using different major scale to the key of the song.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I didn't hear the first part. So I heard the major scale part, and then you cut off.
Yeah, Ken asks, does Prescilla explore different modes using a different major scale with the key of the song? Again, that went
I see.
as well.
I see. Okay, so do I choose a specific scale or specific major? Again, when I write, personally, I don't like to follow any rules when I write any song. So whether it be like, the whole standard way of writing a pop song or whatever the case may be, or having being played something in like A major or F minor, I let the song come out of me. And the major, minor, like that changes. So I don't go into a song saying, okay, I'm going to play a song in F minor, right? I play it, I compose letting the song come out of me. And then at the end, that's when I kind of analyze the song. Okay, well, this is A major, and so I kind of go backwards, right? I don't put it on paper. I let the song come out, and then I put it on paper. I kind of do the opposite of what most composers do.
And it sounds like you've got a little friend there that wants to get in on this interview.
Yeah, that's my dog, Gina. She's a sweetheart. She's 3 years old, and she's been on this journey with me. She's a complete sweetheart.
I'm conscious of the time because we haven't got that long with you tonight.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask you, about is it the hertz, the megahertz that music is broadcast to? Now there's a difference, isn't there? Is it something like 430 and 440 or 423? Something ridiculous, but there's a different pitch. That's it. Yeah, the different pitch of music that is not used as often as we could, and the pitch that we get at the moment is it just it sort of like puts people in a depressive mode.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you been experimenting with stuff like that in different pitches.
Do you mean pitch as a sound quality, or you mean pitch as in like the notes, like the?
No,
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about.
I think what
I can kind of talk about both.
I think what Jason's referring to, Prescilla, is there's 432 and 440, and I believe that the original concert pitch was tuned to 432 and it's changed to 440 or vice versa under the behest of the Rockefellers in about 1920, and the present system that's used does tend to create a bit of a dark feeling within people, but when music is remastered to the other pitch, it's much more enlightening.
I think you're saying what I'm thinking of, but in a different terminology.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 1920s, the big thing was vinyl, right? Vinyl was a big thing, and right now, especially in Canada, it's becoming like a really popular thing because the sound quality is so different than what we have now, which is digital. Right now, when I produce, so whenever there's stems or vocals or guitar that has to be mixed, we always make sure, like my team and I always make sure it's a wave file to make a solid master to later transform that into MP3 for the typical listener.
Mm-hmm.
So, like here again, like I said, it's such a big thing here right now. And there's pros and cons to it. I mean, it's easy to go on YouTube or SoundCloud and to hear a song. I think the accessibility of music is so much easier now. But with sound quality, when you hear a recording, it most definitely has gone down, and it is a shame. But I'm sure that the future of music, I'm sure that there's engineers all around the world working on, how to get better quality on the laptops and in our ears.
I just heard an interview that Gareth Icke had given. He's just released an album. I don't know if it's David Icke's son.
Mm-hmm.
And he's released an album, and it's all at 432 rather than 440.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what made me think of that one. That one really. I just wondered if you were familiar with that. Now, like I say, I'm wary of the time. So I was about, if you give us a few links of where people can. We're going to play one of your tunes, I think, aren't we, Andy?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I've got I Am queued up and also Revolution. So if you give us the links, Prescilla, before you have to go, and then you can choose which one we play you out with.
Sure. So if you go to my website, prescillamusic.com, that's PRESCILLA music.com, you'll find a few tabs. So if you go into the tab Social Media, you'll find YouTube, you'll find SoundCloud, and I have a few music videos out. So the recent one that you just mentioned for I Am is the video is the first thing that you see on my website. So that will direct you on YouTube.
That's the one that's the one I'm looking at now with the yeah, I can see that. You can buy it on iTunes, can't you? It's got a little iTunes thing on it.
Yeah, well, since we both are from the UK, I have to tell you, I'm not sure if you guys know Chris Burkett, but he originally was from the UK, and he was part producer of the song "Nothing Compares to You" by Sinead O'Connor that Prince wrote, and I think he was one of the big inspirations when I had a quick chat with him after a performance that we both had. And he said, you know what, Prescilla, the Canadian music scene here in regards to artist development is lacking, and if it wasn't lacking, there would be so many amazing Canadian artists out there. Of course we have like our Drake, I went to high school with Drake, and of course we have our Justin Bieber's, and Shania Twain, but there's so much talent here, and I'm so excited to be a part of this like Canadian revolution music.
That's fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Prescilla. And I do hope you have great success in the future. And it'd be great if you could come back and talk to us sometime in the future. What song would you like us to play you out with then?
I am, since the music video is out.
Okay, that's brilliant. So thank you very much for joining us at Raconteurs News, and best wishes for your future of your career, and I hope you have a great deal of success. Thank you, Prescilla.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Prescilla.
We'll be back shortly with some more guests. Good evening and welcome back to Raconteurs News. I hope you all start again. I hope you all enjoyed hearing from Prescilla, but we've got something pretty special, and it was a bit spur of the moment, but we're having a conversation earlier on today on Skype, and a good friend of the show, Kevin Mark, he'd sent some of his CBD balm to a gentleman who's quite well known to our listeners, Michael O. And Michael tried it out in front of us. And Michael, can you possibly tell the listeners what happened when you tried it?
Well, up until I put that balm on, the muscles in my lower arms have been aching quite a lot. I suffer with fibromyalgia, and there's been muscle wastage. I think within about a minute of rubbing the balm into my skin, I could feel the skin beginning to stiffening, but the pain reduced considerably. I would say now it's no pain there at all.
Wow, that is incredible. Having lived with someone who's suffered from fibromyalgia for almost a decade, that to me is, I can only describe it as a miracle.
Like I said, I can't take opiates because I'm allergic to them. Anti-inflammatories, I'm allergic to those. The pain clinic at my local teaching hospital said, we can't give you anything. But it seems that something does work. And it's something like a humble plant.
Exactly.
Well, sorry, but I've just before we came on air, my missus was complaining about her neck. She slept funny on it last night, on her neck, and she woke up and she's got like this pain down her back, down her neck. And just before we came on air, I said, "Look, let me just rub some of this oil in. Let me just rub some CBD oil in." And so I rubbed some CBD oil in, and I've just been downstairs while we played that record from Prescilla, and she said it's fine. and yeah, when I went upstairs, she was doing the old, where they don't move, where when you move your head and your entire body moves to the side, instead of turning your head. She was doing that before, and now she said it's fine. So that's another one.
That's incredible. Well, we also joined on the call tonight as well by Kevin Mark. Good evening, Kev.
Good evening, Andy. How are you doing?
All right, mate. So it's an incredible story, this, isn't it? And you've had so many people that you've helped with this oil. Well, we've had, because it's something we've done together between us, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the show a couple of times. The listeners probably know me because I'm fighting the gas warrants, but I don't think you probably know my full history about me. But I was a fireman for 22 years, and I injured my back. I retired 4 years ago. I was medically retired 4 years ago, and I've been on strong painkillers. I've actually been on dihydrocodone, which are highly addictive. Although I wasn't addicted to them, but I could only have 4 a day. I've had facet injections in the lower spine. I've seen a consultant that wanted to pin it, plate it, screw it, you name it, he wanted to do it. And it was only January this year where I started to think outside the box and do a bit of self-healing. And I thought, I'm going to jump into the deep end and I'm going to research CBD oil. I did it in January. I stopped my painkillers. And since January to this present day, I'm pain-free. So I'm just completely on CBD and the rub as well. Now and again, I do the rub. But obviously, those people that are very aware of it, it's not a case of getting high on CBD.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know, it's taken out. That's what makes it legal to consume it. And unfortunately, that's all we've got at the moment in time until things progress, you know, and what they're trying to do to make it legal sort of thing. But it's still available if you know where to go. That's all I'm going to say. But apart from this, the CBD, I've got a couple of people that's using it. I mean, one of them I brought in tonight is Alonso. Hello, Alonso.
Hello there.
Yeah, do you want to come in, mate, and just tell people your experiences and your illness and what you've had and the results?
Yeah. Basically, I've got an illness called hyperaldosteronism. And that's basically tumours on your adrenal glands.
Ooh.
And you get a whole host of other side effects from that. High blood pressure, headaches, general chronic fatigue, etc. And mainly, obviously, because of the headaches, I've taken opiate painkillers. And obviously, you get side effects from that as well. And then you build a tolerance to it as well. So obviously, you have to, grin and bear the headache sometimes.
See, how long have you been on the oil now?
Sorry?
How long have you been on the oil now? It's about a week, isn't it?
About a week and a half.
And you've noticed notable differences, yeah?
It was instant. From the first day, so obviously I got it on the Friday, took it on the Saturday, and that Saturday evening, that was the best night's sleep I'd had in a very long time.
That's amazing.
And painkillers, you've reduced your painkillers, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, taking the oil, some days, and it's unheard of, some days I didn't take any painkillers, to be fair.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That is absolutely incredible, Alonso.
And that's like, from taking it every day, and then obviously not taking it at all. It's phenomenal.
And how long have you been taking your heavy dose of painkillers, Alonso?
Quite a few years, to be honest with you.
I know from my personal experience, I was taking a heavy dose of morphine for nearly a decade. And then they decided that a heavy dose of morphine for nearly a decade wasn't such a good idea. So they put me on this stuff called pregabalin. And, man, it was horrible. It was like living in a cloud where you didn't know what the hell was going on. You couldn't stay awake for more than a few hours at a time. It was dreadful. And before I discovered the CBD oil, I discovered something called inclined bed therapy, which we also promote here. We had Tony Moran on a couple of weeks ago telling us how it gave him the edge to win his boxing world championship. And then I discovered the CBD oil because the inclined bed therapy, it did wonders for me sciatica, but didn't do a big lot for me back. Discovered the CBD oil, and my back's not entirely pain-free, but it's really, really manageable, and I don't need to take anything else, which after 10 years on that dose of morphine is just beyond belief for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
we've also
I've got no need for painkillers anymore as well. I mean, I've got a condition called antiphospholipid syndrome, which is pretty similar to. It's often misdiagnosed as MS. So I get pretty bad symptoms, a lot of pain, and I was on a painkiller called gabapentin, which is a particularly nasty one, for quite a while, and I didn't know the way that it affected me until after I stopped taking it. And it was there was one particular Christmas, and my wife called it the rage. It was a few years ago, but one particular Christmas day, I'd run out of gabapentin, and I didn't take any for all that day, and I just went into a some psychotic thing about screaming at TV and shouting at everybody and everything. And the thing is that I didn't realise until I found some gabapentin that had fell under the fridge, and I took them, and then it went off like that.
Wow.
So it was a huge addiction issue with me, and thankfully I got off gabapentin pretty easily. But the CBD oil now means that I'm pretty much pain free from somewhere. I mean, I've got a blood clot in my right leg, and a lot of the nerves in the lower of my right leg, when I had a blood clot for a week that was stuck in there that had completely blocked everything off. It was left in there, and I had a lot of nerve damage. So what they said to me was that the nerves in my leg had come back to life but didn't know what to do. So they were sending all the wrong signals to all around my body, which is why I needed the gabapentin. Which they told me switched that part of your brain off, which now looking back, it should have raised huge alarms, but it didn't. But yeah, I've been using it for free. I've been using it for ages, and it's doing me no end of good.
Right, Kev's
I mean, when I initially had it worked straight away. I admit I was a bit, skeptical of that. But first-hand experience, literally within a minute or two, game over.
Mm. Yeah, I understand that, Michael. You need to go. You've got another call coming. You need to go and help somebody.
That rub that I put into my upper left arm, that is still working. Up until I rubbed it in, it was like somebody had. Well, I think I described it earlier. It's like having one of those cuffs wrapped around you to do blood pressure, and they pumped it. I mean, they just left it like that. It's great. I mean, obviously, if I move my arm in a certain position, but the pain is nowhere near as bad. That's just rubbing a little bit into the skin. So it proves that, CBD does work.
Well, considering you'd never actually tried it until this afternoon, you tried the drops, hadn't you? But not the actual balm.
Well, the balm and the oil arrived today. I took about 3 drops of it earlier on, and I've tried some rub, and it's the first time in about 5 years I've kind of had quite a bit of relief from going there doing it. Yeah, it does work. Sometimes I find where people cannot tolerate things like opiates or anti-inflammatories and things like gabapentin. Yeah, they were going to give me gabapentin, and they decided not to. They gave me amitriptyline. Oh my God, it was like waking up with the most horrendous
hangover.
It is, yeah. No, I was taking them straight off it. Pregabalin didn't even have any effect on me.
Wow.
The pregabalin, I was on it for about 2 months, and the neurologist at my local teaching hospital said, didn't have any effect. I didn't do anything at all. He went, pardon? I said, no, not at all. He went, oh, that's unusual. He said, it does work for some people. I said, yeah, but it worked for me. But the neuro team at my local hospital, they're very good.
But it didn't work for you. But don't worry, you're addicted now, so we'll keep prescribing it you.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, when I have knee problems, or many years ago, they prescribed coproxamol, also known as ditalgesic. Unfortunately, the opiate in it, which is called dextropropoxyphene, I developed an allergy to it, and it's got an awful habit, especially in elderly people, but it can happen in younger people at first, but you not feel so bad if you're breathing. And I suddenly realised I wasn't breathing automatically, and I thought, so one of my family called the doctor. He came out and he said, "Oh, you know?" I said, "It's starting to come back." He said, "Yeah." He said, "You developed an adverse reaction to it." I said, "Well, I've been taking it up to now." He said, "No." He said, "It can happen, unfortunately." He said, "You can develop an adverse reaction." And he said, "We don't know why." So he said, "Go to see your GP tomorrow and see what he says." And when I saw my GP, he took a red pen and put allergic coproxamol right across the top of the envelope.
Wow.
So I've got to wear metal tag around my neck with a star of life on it, which is the symbol you get on the side of emergency ambulances and ambulance service rapid response vehicles, to say don't give me opiates and don't give me anti-inflammatories. It could kill me. So
fantastic. Yeah, what we've got.
This stuff I've had, Jason, and the CBD. I mean, that is incredible. I mean, less than a minute, the pain has gone down significantly. I think you guys were watching me actually rub it into this part where I get a lot of pain, and that's significantly reduced. So it does prove that CBD is a natural painkiller, but it's more effective than a lot of others. Even though morphine, diethrocodeine, and those are derived from opium.
I think people have to
understand. It just goes to prove that CBD obviously is more effective and it's nowhere near addictive, nowhere near dangerous.
Yeah, I think people need to know as well that we have our own cannabinoid system within our own body. And it's the CBD within the cannabis plant, the hemp plant, that attaches to our cannabinoid system that produces the healing. But everyone's made differently. So some people will get instant effects. What I've experienced anyway, I was pain-free the next day, and I've been pain-free since that day, since January. I always remember it was a Sunday night. I took the drops that night, and the next day I was pain-free, and I've been pain-free since that day. Some people are a bit different depending on the chronic pain. So everyone's made differently. But everyone has that cannabinoid system within your body, and it's the CBD that heals it. Now, because it has low THC, I think it's 0.02%, the threshold of THC to be legal, because that's why it is legal, so you don't get that high stoned effect. That's what we're using. There's nothing that I don't know that it can't fix at the moment. It seems to do everything.
Earlier on, I had a sensation in my tips of my fingers, which I get with fibromyalgia. It feels, when you trap your fingers in a door, in between the frame and the door itself, like a crushing pain. I had that in my fingertips. That has actually lessened. So what's happened there, I don't know. And it might be where I've been doing that, but it might be that because these muscles here have been resolved in some way, it may have had it. It's just like a sort of a slight sort of tingling now.
Well, I mean, you have had some balm on those fingers, haven't you? Because that's what you used to rub it in.
No, because I only used my right hand, because trying to do that it might be, Jason, it may well be that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I put in that on as well, but it's now just a sort of a very, very slight tingling now. It's not that horrible crushing pain that you get when you trap your finger in a door. That's gone, which is a great relief, actually.
That's fabulous news, Michael. I know you've got to get off because there's someone else you've got to help. Thank you very much for coming on and telling your story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah,
cheers, Michael.
It's been brilliant of you to join us. I know we've got someone else waiting in the wings. I think he's gone to make a cup of tea. So we could perhaps put a little song on now because we usually have one on the hour. Thanks, Michael. And we'll be back in about 5 minutes. So stay tuned, folks. We've got a bit of science coming up for you after the break.
You're listening to raconteursnews.com. Stay tuned for more untwisted, unsweetened news. Please consider buying a t-shirt or making a donation to help support us. Thank you for your support. We do it for us all.
And welcome back to Raconteurs News, where we're having quite an interesting show. We started out with Prescilla Una telling us about her starting the music business and how she's creating her own record label, which was fascinating in itself. But we've now got several people on the call who have started using this magical plant or the derivative from it to heal all kinds of things. We heard from Michael O before the break how he's been suffering from fibromyalgia, hasn't been able to get any relief from these incredible pains in his arms, but he rubbed some of the CBD balm into his arms in front of us, and in a minute or so the pain was gone. While we were on air, he rubbed some into his upper arm, which he said was really painful, and he said the pain just melted away. We've also heard from Alonzo, his long-standing medical condition, how it's vastly improved. The same from Jason, the same from me, the same from Kevin. But now we've been joined by another regular guest on our end, and it's Colin Johnson. Evening, Col.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
We're doing very well, Colin. You've been using some of this oil as well.
Well, not me.
Mm-hmm.
Me daughter has.
Right.
She's, if I say she moans about every single pain she's got,
mm-hmm.
right, you can get the gist.
Yeah.
I haven't since she's been on that oil. I haven't seen her for 4 days. She ain't been home.
Really? Wow.
It's been a blessing in disguise, really.
That's excellent news. So, how long's your daughter been taking the oil, Colin?
Well, about 2 weeks. Not even that, is it? A week?
Wow. No, it can't be 2 weeks because I know you were still waiting.
It's just my head's all over the place in a minute. I can't remember the exact date that I received it from the man now. But yeah, so even the rub, I've had to go to the rub as well. I had a right stinking headache.
Mm.
Sorry, kids are in and out like in Piccadilly Circus at the minute. Well, trying to the rub. Yeah, I had a stinking headache. Right, it was one of them drumming headaches. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I thought, I wonder. So I got hold of his rub, and I stuck a bit of that on, and like within 10 minutes, the headache had totally gone. So I'll sneak a bit now. See, as soon as I get an ache or pain or anything like that, I'll whack a bit on, and it's gone within 10 minutes out there. You know, top whack.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of them type of people who was like, when Kev was telling me about it, I was thinking, oh yeah, I've heard it, you know how it is. Let's have a try. Because the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? So,
yeah, absolutely.
I've had a go, and like I can give it thumbs up all days long.
Mm.
Your wife scolded herself, didn't she?
Yeah, but I do understand what you were saying beforehand about how there seems to be some sort of taboo alongside it. You feel like at some point you're going to have to sit in a circle with other people and stand up and say, my name's Jason and I use CBD oil. Don't you? I mean, yeah. You go from it. So as soon as you mention cannabis, it's the C word, really. It's anything that begins with C that nobody likes. You can't, cancer, cannabis, all these things. These are all cake. Yes, exactly. Yes, that's right. Chocolate.
Yeah, well, that's something that Kev was saying we really need to address when we were on the break there, and I know a lot of people been fed the line for so many years that cannabis, it's dangerous and it turn you mental and it'll do all kinds of stuff. But, and it highly addictive, as one doctor actually said on Raconteurs News not long back before we very quickly corrected her.
You corrected her.
We've had, we've had Rick Simpson on expounding the virtues of the full Rick Simpson oil with the full THC. Now, that's not what we're talking about here, because at this point, that's still illegal in this country. Obviously, we need to do something about that, and we need to get all the laws regarding cannabis repealed, because this is a medicine that mankind has been using for at least 5,000 years. And up until the Rockefellers hijacked the pharmaceutical industry, it was commonly prescribed. You look on line, and there's numerous photographs of old medicine bottles with cannabis tincture and cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and it was so commonly used, but it was cheap as chips. And you grow fields of it, like Rick Simpson said, it costs you thousands of dollars to make a cancer treatment because of the illegality. But if it were to be grown as a crop, then you could buy a pound of high-grade bud, which is what you need to make for a cancer treatment. You could buy it for $10 or maybe even less. But what we're using is not the THC containing oil, although if you can get hold of it, it absolutely is incredible for pain. The CBD is entirely legal in the UK. I've been bombarded with messages since we started talking about where can I get some of this stuff from. And what I will say is that you can buy it online. Kev started out buying it online. I did as well. And if I'm honest, the results were impressive. But I recently bought some, and I paid 60 quid for a 10ml bottle. And that 10ml bottle was supposed to be 10% CBD. Now, I was using it, and I was thinking, this isn't really... And I was kind of upping the dose. And then myself and Kevin, we had a get-together, and we decided to make our own. And we got some hemp that we imported from... was it Czechoslovakia or Slovenia, the first lot, Kev?
Slovenia.
Ah, right. And we made our own, and we made it at 2%. So we did the business. We made our own oil, and we tried it. And my finding was that what we made at 2% was far more effective than what I was buying for 60 quid a bottle online. And it was supposed to be 10%. So, as with anything that you buy online, it's always difficult to be certain of what you're actually getting. Now, if anybody wants to get hold of some of the stuff that we're using, and all these testimonies that you've heard tonight have been the stuff that myself and Kev have produced, then if you send me a message, you can get hold of me at Andy at Raconteurs News, then we can sort you out with some. And we do it to help people. We don't do it to make a lot of money. We're just basically covering the costs so that we can keep making it and keep helping people.
And we can keep this little operation going so that we can inform people as well. So it's all for everybody's good. It's everybody's benefit. And we do seem to be sort of like popping down the road of being an infomercial again. But it is just that simply that good. That we know, I had it, and the main thing that for me is, I'm asthmatic as well. So in the morning, I've always got a lot to cough up, especially because I do enjoy a THC cigarette from time to time in the evening. So in the morning, I've always got loads to cough up, and usually I'm coughing up for a while. I end up with my eyeballs are red, and getting it all that. First night I took it, 3 drops. The first night, the next morning, clear as a bell. I couldn't believe it. Absolutely clear as a bell. And I'm also assuming that the inclined bed as well helped. But it is good stuff.
That's half of the trouble, isn't it? Is you've got that, and you tell people what it does, how it cures, or not. I shouldn't use that word cure. It does a benefit that you're pouring all these like drugs down your throat, what the doctor's giving you, right? And there's this little bit of bowl with a couple of little squirts of liquid, right? And they're salting you right out. And people, when you tell people, they say, "Oh no, you're talking crap. My doctor's been doing it for donkey's years." Do you know what I mean? He knows what he's doing. And when you tell people, well, no, I've actually witnessed it's done this, it's done that. I've seen the amount of pills that someone's taken and now they don't take them. You know what I mean? And it's that it's getting people to try it. That's what I'm saying, rather than dissing it. And that's what you need really, because like I've seen it with my own eyes. And
the balm as well, the salve. It's not only pain, you can use it on burns, scalds, eczema, psoriasis, MS.
Well, I told you the other day, didn't I, Kev?
Yeah.
The old lady was out in the kitchen making herself a cup of tea, right? My baby's gone out now, or she's 3 now, but she's got one of them little like covers which she won't let you wash, she won't let you go near it. You know them?
A blanket.
Yeah, blanket. That's it, a blanket, right? But she was swinging that about. Well, as she swung it about, she caught the cup of what the old lady had just poured her tea in, like, and it went all over her leg. And she's going, "Oh, this is killing me," you know what I mean? And I said, "Why don't you try some of that rub?" And she put it on, and she said, "I can hardly feel." After about 10-15 minutes, she could hardly feel it. And then she just rubbed it on again that night. And the burn went, yeah, that's the one, Jason. You've got it, mate. Right?
That's mine.
Yeah. She won't. I know what you mean with them. She just won't let us touch. She won't let. She goes berserk if you try and stick it in the washing machine and whatever. She goes absolutely mental. But anyway, getting back to this stuff, she rubbed it on her leg for 2 days, and she couldn't feel the pain no more. And it had gone right. It was like sort of turning blistery. And like within, like I said, 2 days, even the blisters have basically gone down. So there is a big shout out for it, because I'd recommend it, especially when you see the amount of crap that people are pouring down their throats, and it ain't doing them no favours. Well, this stuff, it's not addictive. You ain't gonna sort of go and commit burglaries for the stuff and all sorts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, not only is it stinking head, didn't you, Andy, tonight while I was setting this up?
Oh yeah. That was really funny because I've got a bit of a headache coming on. I don't really get headaches. The only headaches I get are these cluster headaches, which absolutely knock me for 6. But I said to Kev, "Oh, I've got this headache. I'm going to try some of that rub." So I just got a little dab on my finger, rubbed it a bit on either temple, across my forehead. And he said, "Oh, I'll time it." He said, it's 10 past. We'll see how long it takes. And then about 20 minutes later, I said, "Oh, Kev, the timing. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. I didn't even notice. My headache just went. You know, I don't know whether it was 2 minutes or 5 minutes, but it was just gone." I suppose it must be a bit strange for anyone who's listening to this who's not experienced it, because it does sound a bit like we're all snake oil salesmen, but unless you've actually tried it, you really can't appreciate what it does.
Yeah. That's the point I was trying to get across, Andy, in a roundabout way, to be honest, is people need to try it. You know, there's the old saying in there, "Don't knock it till you've tried it."
Yeah.
And this is one of them sort of times that you say, "Yeah, that's right." That is definitely right.
I mean, I can honestly say I'm true to my word. I'm a gentleman, and everyone that's talking about it tonight, it's genuine feedback. I can honestly say that. And it's amazing how people's experiences are getting the pain relief or helping them. I'm not saying it's going to make you pain free, but it could help you better than what you was before when you was on your meds. Everyone's different. You've got to understand that.
Yeah, but it seems to help different people who have got completely different ailments.
Yeah.
But it seems to help just as much.
I mean, the thing we're looking at the moment, that's in the pipeline. We're going to be doing tea as well. We're doing CBD hemp tea.
Wow.
So we're going to start doing that as well. You can have a drink at night or in the morning, and that contains the healing as well from the CBD. So that's all in the pipeline at the moment as well. And all of it it's 100% natural. It's organic. There's no pesticides. There's no nothing on it.
What's the difference? Because my dad, when I mentioned it to my dad, my mum wanted a bottle. Now my dad's mate had said that he'd been taking hemp oil, and I'm assuming he's got it from some source, some shop, Holland and Barrett or something. But he said he took a teaspoonful every morning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the stuff I'm using? It's just 3 drops in the morning. So it's quite a big differential. What's the difference between the good stuff that we're taking and the stuff that you can buy in shops?
Yeah, well, the hemp oil that you buy in the shops, Jason, it is good stuff. It's full of essential fatty acids, and I did see that there was someone who wanted to be vegetarian, but they needed to keep eating fish to keep up their levels of whatever it was, and they managed to stop eating fish by just taking hemp oil. Now, what that is, it's made from the crushed hemp seeds, and it doesn't contain, if it does contain any CBD, it's only a slight trace. But what we have been making is we do an extraction from the plant material and extract the CBD to an oil, and then mix that as a carrier oil with hemp oil at 2% level. So that's what the difference is. Both good in their own way, but if you've got masses of pain, then the hemp seed oil really ain't going to do you an awful lot of good. It might help a little bit, but it isn't going to have the same effect as what we're talking about. I actually take a teaspoonful of hemp seed oil morning and night when I take my drops as well.
Right. Yeah, I just thought the anomaly was, huge. A teaspoon to 3 drops, and I just thought now you've explained it, it makes perfect sense.
Well, I'm getting another piece of advice for you, Jason. I'm getting told, tell Jason that MMS Anatomizer Spray, breathe deep, is fantastic for clearing your lungs. The guy who's telling me says he does it about once every 3 weeks, and it keeps the ventricles totally clear. You can get a brown atomizer off eBay for about £3. So there you go. There's another possibility open there.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much to that whoever's sent you that. It's great. Thank you.
I mean, I even take the hemp seed oil in the morning, a teaspoon and a teaspoon at night, as well as the drops. I mean, I've got it. The best way to do it is manage it yourself. I'm no medical profession. I can't say take this and it'll cure it. I can't say do this. All I can say, I'm using the CBD oil. That's what it's done for me. It's entirely up to you if you use it, because it's all litigation. It's all like that through the medical profession. I'm not qualified to say that. All I can say is it's there. If you want to use it, then go see your doctor's advice, or if you want to do it, then you do it. That's all I can say. But I take the oil in the morning and at night, and when I use it, you manage it yourself. I mean, I was on 6 drops a day, morning, dinner, and at night just before you go to bed. And I noticed the pain had gone, so I just reduced it. I went two in the morning and probably 2 at night. I missed dinner out. So you just manage it yourself. I mean, I know Alonso's told me he sleeps like a log now. He's never slept so well. His first night, he slept all night.
Yeah.
Well,
hello, Alonso.
Hello, mate. Yeah, the thing about these ailments is, although, like, obviously when you're up and about, you know, they really affect your day, but it also really affects your sleep. And then obviously the less sleep you get, you know, the more your immune system goes down and other stuff happens to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who's got any illness where fatigue's involved can relate to what I'm saying. So obviously the more sleep you get, then you know the more your body can heal naturally as well. That you don't need these pills that they keep getting you to take.
Absolutely. I'm wondering. I think this would possibly be a good point to bring Jack into the call now, because Jack's going to give us a little bit of the science behind this. Are you there, Jack?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted out. Typical.
That's it. We can hear you now, mate.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, Jack.
Evening.
Well, before we go any further, is it all right to mention what's going to be happening in the near future?
We'll leave that one on the shelf for the moment.
Yeah, fine.
But yeah, I just fascinating personal testimonies. We've got a friend and listener of mine in the chat at the moment who's been using CBD oil both for himself and his fairly elderly mother's sciatica, and been finding quite some efficacy in it. And certainly for my benefit, all of your testimonies to this external topical application as a rub is really key to supporting a lot of the sort of evidence that I'm amassing. I mean, I'll lay my cards on the table. I'm a full spectrum cannabinoid researcher, so the CBD is more of a sort of a fringe area in my own personal research, so I don't have a great deal to say on the CBD subject, except for perhaps, as you rightly said, to call me in on the science. What we're discussing here with the cannabinoids is a range of very large molecules in the natural world. The cannabinoids are some of the largest single molecules you can get. There's one that's commonplace that's larger. That's the PTFE stuff that you use on plumber's tape, which is a molecule that's so large it's visible to the naked eye if you've got particularly keen eyes, which on a molecular scale is enormous. And what we have with the cannabinoids is a group of what are known as hexanes. These are a molecular structure of a hexagonal structure of atoms joined together by something that's known as the valent bond. And this is like an atomic level connection between those atoms that makes it a very stable substance and needs a lot of energy to break it down and access the constituent parts. However, past these hexanes, we have the tails that make the sort of visible element, the grandiose size of the cannabinoid molecules. And it's where this tail molecules come into it that we start to see the differentiation between CBD, THC, and all of the various terpenes and the sterols. I think the sterols might actually be, I think sterols are another part of the plant biology and aren't actually intrinsically connected with the resin production. I think they're actually intrinsic to the leaf material, but are also known to be very active in the treatment of nerve complaints. Anyway, so it strikes me that if CBD is having as much action as it appears to be with you gentlemen, what it may well be is that through topical application and through consumption through the digestive tract, that the natural enzymes on both your skin and your stomachs are reducing the cannabinoid molecules down to these stable hexanes, and it's these stable hexanes that are possibly delivering such a powerful punch. And it's long been my suspicion that these are the active ingredient that are involved with something known as mylar repair. So where most of your complaints are of a nerve sort of based condition, that these are not only going to be acting to directly counterpoint your pain, but they're actually going to be repairing the damaged regions of the skin of the nerves, which is what causes the nerve leakage, which leads to things like MS and the sort of fibromyalgias and the sciaticas that a lot of you seem to be treating with this. So very fascinating information to me.
Well, it's particularly fascinating for me, Jack, because I've lived with a sufferer of fibromyalgia for about 10 years now, and she was taking an awful lot of medication, most of which had horrendous side effects, and it really didn't scratch the surface. It wasn't doing that much good, and just by these two simple natural therapies that we found, raising the head of the bed by 6 inches and ingesting the CBD oil, it's been an absolute transformation. I mean, Jason, the difference it's made in Jason is just absolutely astounding. I used to talk to Jason a couple of times a week, like we do now. Well, they have a chat in between sometimes. But after Jason had his last heart attack, we were seriously worried about him. He honestly looked like he was at death's door. And when Jason had been taking the oil, I think it was only for a couple of days even, my good lady came in the room and she stopped and did a double take when she saw Jason. She says, "Oh my God, Jason looks like he's been to Spain for a fortnight. He got the colour back in him. He looked well. He just looked like a different guy."
Well, you've touched on another one of the fascinating properties of the cannabinoids there, in as much as they appear to have some very peculiar and pretty immediate action on the cardiovascular system. And this is actually what causes a lot of the sort of slightly more unpleasant effects of THC, sort of whiteouts and sort of faints and things that people suffer from with it. Is because it can both dilate and constrict your cardiovascular system, and it appears to do so in a sort of a very sort of hard to predict way. And it would appear that for people that are suffering from sort of congestive conditions, it dilates the vascular system and allows the blood to flow more freely. And in people who are suffering from sort of low blood pressure, it tends to constrict the blood vessels. And it's only in people that don't really have any cardiovascular problems that you get all the interesting situations where it starts lowering your blood pressure when you need it higher and raising it when you could do with it being a bit lower.
It sounds a bit like a thermos flask there, because they're quite clever, aren't they? They keep hot things hot and cold things cold. But how the hell did they know the difference?
Well, it's certainly a more intriguing question as to how it would have such selective activity, and that this is really one of my key issues with the subject, is that the issue with prohibition has more or less left scientists terrified of going near this subject, and research into it has just been so nominal. And even just to access those pharmaceuticals that have been isolated and are available through the various normal routes. I've got a friend who's was fully wheelchair bound with MS, and she was already a cannabis smoker, but found that it only had a very moderate level of pain control, and of symptom reduction the way that she was consuming it. Well, the first thing that I isolated was the fact that her supply was just a regular street supply at the time, just whatever she could buy in her local area. And I was able to fortunately sort of connect them up with some people that could provide something of a more medicinal quality. And that helped. And she also pursued through her doctors the Sativex sublingual spray, which is the only licensed THC-bearing product on the market. And after many years of banging her fist, she was finally allowed to access it, unfortunately in an absolutely nominal dose. But fortunately, she was able to sort of what she wasn't able to work out for herself, she was able to come to me for advice for, and was able to advance her own investigation into the subject, looked into cooking and eating rather than smoking, and changed over to vaping rather than smoking joints. And I'm very happy to report that she is now capable of spending an entire day without either wheelchair or crutches. And her doctor had told her that her nerve damage would be completely irreparable at the state that it was at.
Wow.
My Annie. I'm so proud of my Annie. And Gareth's so funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. She's like sort of able to walk around on her legs all day long now. But you can still push her over real easy if you try.
Oh, that sounds like sport, Jack. I've got a question here from Susie in the chat room. And first looked at her and I thought, okay, Susie's been smoking the good stuff tonight. But then I thought, in view of what we've just been talking about, I'm going to ask that question. And if it's a stupid question, tell me to shut up, Jack. She's saying, do we think cannabinoids have intelligence?
Well, this certainly touches on an area that I'm reasonably convinced of, and that's that apart from this direct evidence of things like mylar sheath repair and direct evidence of blood pressure regulation, really the vast majority of the medicinal use of cannabinoids is almost impossible to draw a direct sort of biochemical relationship between the action of the substance and the biology, which has always led me to suspect that in fact the vast majority of people who arrive at cannabinoids as a medicine do so through the consumption, either intentionally as a medicinal for its medicinal properties, or just simply recreationally, and find its use, you know what I mean, its uses sort of almost incidentally through recreational use. And it's always struck me that most of the problems that people report it treating so effectively are largely, I wouldn't like to say necessarily psychosomatic, but then that's only because most people don't understand what psychosomatic actually means. All right, well, I'll go there. Psychosomatic essentially just simply means in the body of the mind. So this simply means that this is a physiological response to something, either, well, you know what I mean, in medicine of the mind, in sort of holistic medicine, perhaps of the soul. So we're essentially using this substance to treat diseases of the soul. And that in and of itself is effectively a shamanic exercise and is completely outside of the realms of the medicinal industry, completely, apart from very few practitioners that understand their shamanic role within their treatment of their patients. Fortunately, my GP friend being one of those. Well, so I don't know necessarily whether you would describe the substance itself as having an intelligence, but certainly it's a very peculiar substance that we find receptors in the central nervous systems of the sea sponge for. And what the bloody hell does a sea sponge want with getting stoned? I mean, surely it'd make all his joints go soggy, wouldn't it?
Well, the weird thing is, I mean, we've got these receptors in our body that don't work for any other plant on the planet, and we've got these idiots trying to tell us that this plant is dangerous. Now, yeah, those are the same idiots that are trying to convince us that these pharmaceutical medicines that often is not derived from oil are good for us. In spite of the fact that if we take one of their pharmaceutical medicines, we have to take another one for the side effects, and that creates side effects, and we have to take another one for that.
Oh, Jesus. Annie's bloody medicine tray, her daily medicine tray that she used to have to take out with her every day, had sort of, whatever it was, 4 compartments for the 4 doses a day of everything that she had to take, and something like 8 compartments going the other way, each of which with a different bloody substance or compound in it. And when I went through the list of drugs that they'd put her on as a compound, I said, have you ever asked your doctors if they know what these substances do in this combination and these doses? Because I'm looking at these and I'm pretty up on my pharmacology, and I wouldn't be able to predict what they were going to do in a human organism. Not in combination. I think it'd be, you couldn't have empirical data on that.
That's quite frightening when you think about it, because there are so many people who are taking 3, 4, 5 and more meds every day, and because the man wears a white coat, they believe everything he says. Yet some of those people will hear us talking about our experiences. It's not, I know a bloke who did this. This is personal experience for all of us on this call tonight.
I'd like to interrupt there, Andy. When you're saying that, I'm speaking from a position of where I'm one of those people that's taking quite a few meds, and that I still think I take the CBD oil, but I still think that I've got a need to take the meds that I'm taking as well, particularly the warfarin, because.
Absolutely, Andy, and it's really good that you chipped in with that as it goes, because that was actually one of my points, is that this is something that I have really struggled with this particular subject, and especially with the full spectrum extracts, is that you have to look at whoever you're suggesting try this, you have to look at every other compound that they're already taking and ask yourself the very serious question, is this going to interact unduly with that compound? And especially if you're talking about people who have like opiates or even warfarin, the more active compounds may be not what they need. They may need something just with the CBD, because the THC component would be just far too powerful a psychoactive component to mix with an awful lot of pharmacologicals.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. This isn't necessarily even a replacement for the pharmaceuticals. This is an adjunct to it, and certainly on Annie's part, she's been able to reduce her pharmaceutical intake to a fraction of what it was before, but she's done that very sensibly. She's taken it 1 compound at a time under a doctor's instruction, and has gradually reduced that 1 compound and checked for the results.
The only thing I've really given up is the statins, and I've noticed that since I've given up the statins, my memory has improved incredibly. But I like you say, if you really need to be careful that you don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and put everything into the CBD oil, because there are things that you still need to take.
Well, and also there's the other field of research that I've been keenly interested in, which again is another reason I was so happy to hear your results with topical application of the CBD oil, is the consideration that a large number of the people that approach me are very elderly and with quite serious and complex complaints, and knowing the effects of a psychoactive dose of THC and how goddamn unpleasant it is. I mean, we've probably all heard that phone call with the policeman that's eating the cookies with his girlfriend and thinks that they're both dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know so many people that have had that experience. You know what I mean? A effective overdose of THC is an absolutely hideous experience. And the thought that anything that I'm promoting for medicinal use could have that impact on somebody who's elderly and not used to psychoactive substances and not prepared for the experience through any sort of long-winded kind of medicinal kind of introduction to it, it would just be, you know what I mean, I couldn't condone of any exercise that may lead to that. So for me, it's been quite important that I find methods of ingestion of the whole plant that don't induce a psychedelic effect. And one of those I found has been suppositories, and the other one is topical application. It seems to be very good at being taken up through the skin boundary and having no psychoactive effect whatsoever.
Well, that's good to know, Jack.
What I've learned as well, Jack, what I've picked up from somebody else that's got tumours, they if you take it orally, it goes through the liver. I was told if you do it as a suppository, it bypasses the liver and gets absorbed into the body a lot quicker. Is that right?
Certainly, that's the approach that the group that I've been working with are working on the assumption of. Again, most of the people that come to me are either in end stage or are approaching end stage. So either I've been written off by the doctors or it's their last chance saloon sort of patients. So, you know, I mean, you're working uphill to start with. So, you know what I mean, we're not talking about saving anybody's life here. We're talking about prolonging and improving standard of life, quality of life issues. But certainly, as far as certainly suppositories, and the other one is through topical use. I've recently heard that somebody's managed to resect a malignant fibrous tumour down to an inoperable size through the topical application of a full spectrum coconut butter cream tincture directly topically to the tumour. Fortunately, it was on the surface. And she felt absolutely no effects of that at all, apart from she said she slept really well.
I think we can all agree with that. We can all relate to that, sleeping very well after that sort of treatment.
But again, I think it also bodes on us all as well to try our very best to become vociferous campaigners against this now ludicrous situation of prohibition. And this has got to come out of the bloody medieval times of 100 years ago. We're now in the 21st century. We're all grown up. We can deal with this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I for one, I've been very guarded with what I've said on air tonight. I'm sure that Andy's sitting there wiping his brow.
I could almost hear the cogs whirring.
I am known for not minding what I say. But I live under a condition where I feel that the laws are now completely immoral, and it is my legal duty as a citizen to ignore any immoral law. And so I work from the premise that I don't care what the legality of it is anymore. I'll do my best not to end up behind bars, and I'll certainly do absolutely everything to protect those that I'm working with. If that means me ending up behind bars, then so bloody be it, because I know that I'm only one very small link in a very long chain.
Yeah, I mean, we've had Rick Simpson on this show, 4 or 5 times. I know Tony's planning to get Rick back on very soon, and we're absolutely 100% behind what you're saying there, Jack. And also a little bit of good news on that front. I think he's just about finished work on his 2017 Rick Simpson calendar. And
it's looking superb as well.
I was just going to say, for anyone who hasn't seen Tony's Cannabis images, they are just out of this world. They will blow your mind. I got myself a little microscope to look at the crystals on buds, and that blew my mind. But then when I saw Tony's photographs, they're just in a different league, aren't they? I've never seen anything like it.
Could we use scientific language here? They're not crystals, sir.
Sorry.
They are trichomes of resin.
Yeah.
What people can confuse with crystals of THC is in fact the exuded resins. If you imagine like cherry tree sap on a cherry tree.
Yeah.
Where you get the sap comes out of the tree and then it skins over and forms a hardened resin. But if you break the skin of the resin, it's often still liquid underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Or the pores of the cannabis flower, the hemp flower, and leaves have resin pores all over their surface, and they essentially exude a resin which air dries on its surface but then fills out like a balloon.
Mm.
So what you end up with is like a stalk with a bubble on the end.
Yeah.
And when you dry the plant, that bubble then shrinks and shrivels and starts to look slightly geometric, as if it's a crystal. But in fact, it's still liquid inside. Unless you fully decarboxylized it, then it's still effectively a liquid inside there. It will be carboxylic acid.
That is one thing I did want to bring up with you, Jack. The decarboxylation. I know we're running a bit short on time. If we're going to finish at 10, nobody coming after us, so we can run over it if that's all right with everyone. But the decarboxylation issue, I've talked to someone who does make their own full spectrum oil, and they said they'd never really bothered about decarboxylation, and it does seem to be very effective. Now, can you please explain to us, is it 100% necessary to decarb, and if so, why?
Right. Well, if my suspicions about the stable hexane portions of the molecule being responsible for most of these effects that we're discussing tonight, then no decarboxylation would not be necessary for those results.
Mm-hmm.
Decarboxylation is not going to affect the rigid hexane bonds, so they're going to remain unchanged, and you're just going to ingest exactly the same amount of them as you would have done had you have decarboxylated. Decarboxylation comes in more for active CBD and THC compounds, where you're looking for their chemically active components, which would be more probably for sort of pain relief, stress, depression. I could think of a list of things that you would want a decarboxylated oil for. Mm-hmm. And the reason for this being is that in its undecarboxylated form, it's still in its acid base with a carbon dioxide molecule still in the chain, and decarboxylating releases that actually refers to the release of that carbon dioxide molecule from the acid chain, which then converts the carboxylic acid, if I'm correct on that, don't quote me, to either CBD or THC or THCA. And this is crucial for the psychoactive component. So if whatever you're looking to treat, if that's depression with CBD, you would want active CBD. You would not want the carboxylic acid version of CBD for that particular use. But essentially, any dried herb has effectively been decarboxylated anyway. So unless you're actually taking a fresh grown plant, green from the ground, and sticking it through a blender and using it like that, then the product that you're already dealing with has been more or less decarboxylated naturally. If you want to decarboxylate a little more fully, you just simply need an oven-proof, airtight jar, and you simply put your product in the jar, seal it up, put it in the oven at 100 and 130, 140 degrees centigrade
Mm-hmm.
for half an hour, or until it smells kind of like a hashish when you take the lid off. And once the smell's changed, effectively you will know through practice when it's decarboxylated. It doesn't take very long at all. You can also, if you're doing butter extracts, cocoa butter extracts, just simple dairy butter extracts, you can decarboxylate fully after the procedure's finished, just simply by heating the oil that you've produced, the butter or cocoa butter that you've produced, to around 160 degrees C for 30 minutes.
That's great. Thanks for that, Jack, because I somehow got the impression that decarboxylation was only necessary for THC.
No, the CBD needs to be activated as well for things like depression. But like I say, I think for a lot of the nerve complaints that you're finding efficacy for, it will be down to these stable hexanes that are doing the goodness. So it really doesn't matter how you get it into yourself. And also the other thing about activation, of course, as well, is that if you're talking about recommending it for some elderly patient with cancer, the last thing that you want to be doing is activating the THC. You want them to be getting the tetrahydrocarboxylic acid in them, but not in its reduced form, because you don't want to be getting them high.
Absolutely. Oh, that's made that a lot clearer for me. Thanks, Jack.
I think essentially, if you give the body the whole molecule, if you give a body, and essentially as well, we're also looking at different spectrums of the molecule being in different strains, in different proportions, and also in different regions of the plant in different proportions. So where for sort of hedonistic consumption, for consumption for pleasure, you would normally only use the flowers of the female plant. I personally, for any medicinal use, try and get as much whole plant into the mixture as possible, because there's lots of important sterols and terpenes and things that are available in the plant material that are in fairly low measures in the actual flowers themselves. But of course, that's only really any good for an oil, for a butter extract, or a liquid oil, a non-refined oil extract. So where your THC or CBD content is bound up with another liquid as a dilutant.
Okay, I think I get you there. Yeah, that's. I mean, did you want to stay on for a bit longer, or did you want to?
I'm more than happy to talk. I can talk about this till the cows come home.
Yeah, that's fabulous. You other guys all right staying on?
I would love to go. I would love to go into this realm of prohibition and what's turning out all around the world with the experiments that are going on with the decriminalisation, which appears to now be rising as the preferred route to legalisation than legalisation and taxation. Many of the countries are now seeing, through watching other countries' efforts to legalise, that decriminalisation is the way forward and not legalisation and taxation. That there's greater tax benefits to be gained by just simple decriminalisation and letting everybody earn whatever they can off of it, than trying to tax it like an alcohol or a pharmaceutical.
So, I just feel at this point I should point out that on Thursday night we're actually continuing in a slightly different vein down this same road, because we're going to be joined by a guy called Steve Smith, who's based over in Colorado, and he treats pets with CBD. And when I had a conversation with Steve about coming on the show, he was telling me how the state government of Colorado has made over $1 billion a year since it's been legalized there in taxes. So interesting to see how that's going to work, Jack.
Okay, and yeah, and the Portuguese example is incredible because they're a pure decriminalisation. They haven't legalised anything, so there is no new sort of heroin shops or cocaine shops on the high street. There's no overt mechanism for state taxation, and yet the Portuguese tax returns from the number of sort of heroin addicts and things like that that are returning to the employment market from an enforced absence because of the criminal nature of their sort of daily habitual consumptions. And I'm so rewarded to see what's going on around the world. I really didn't believe that I would see it in my lifetime.
What's your attitude towards recreational use?
There's a leading question.
You see, I were in that allergy moment. I were in the allergy moment there, and I thought to myself, what about the question? Because you've been talking about all different medicinal purposes, and I was just sort of going to do the allergy and say, well, what's the best stuff to get wankered with?
Holy Grail Kush. Holy Grail Kush, or even better, resin extract, dry sift extract of Holy Grail Kush. I've smoked weed from all over the goddamn planet, and I've never had anything quite like it. Certain friends of ours can attest to its quality, shall we say.
Oh, I love that. There's a slight delay from when we're speaking to when it actually goes out on the air, and there's someone listening in the other room, and I just heard a big howl of laughter come through as you asked that question, Dave. Dave, Jason.
Okay, if you can get hold of the Rick Simpson calendar, go to March.
Oh yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm March's pin up.
Yeah, the Rick Simpson calendars, when they're produced, I'm pretty sure they'll be available through our website, raconteursnews.com, and I'm hoping they'll be in the shop there, and any money's raised from that will be going to help Rick doing what Rick's doing, because Rick spent many years of his life and a great deal of his own money advancing this cause. And also, it will help us to do what we're doing at Raconteurs News, and to move forward and to promote what we're doing and to reach a wider audience.
And it looks great.
Oh, it looks absolutely stunning.
Weed porn or what?
Yeah. And for anybody who hasn't seen Tony's images, I suggest you type into your browser.
And the amount of time and effort that goes into each one of those images as well. You just can't. You can't imagine from looking at the pictures. I know how much effort's gone into those pictures.
Yeah,
that man's insane, fully insane.
Well,
anyone else would just take the damn picture and go, yeah, there's the best one. That one will do. 70 bloody layers of JPEGs into a single image, for God's sake.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen them,
the next one will be holographic. You do realise that, you know what I mean? He's gonna want, he's gonna want to step up for next year's.
Well, Tony did hint that he was looking at getting some better equipment to improve the quality of what he's putting out, and I'm thinking, no, that's not possible.
Yeah, look, chuck on a tune so everyone can have a wee break. I'm sat here in the dark with an empty teacup in front of me.
Yeah, we'll find something now. Oh no, I've got several tunes there that we've already had on. Let's have a look. What have we got? A bit of let's have a look. And welcome back to Raconteurs News on this this healing show that we're doing tonight. That's followed up from the brief chat we had with Prescilla Una earlier on. And we've still got on the call, we've still got Jason, we've still got Kevin, although Kevin's going to have to leave shortly. We've still got Cole Johnson, and we've still got Jack. Welcome back, guys.
Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. We're all still here.
Yes, so Jack, we were on the crusade of decriminalisation there.
Yeah, well, we all want it decriminalised, don't we, Jack?
I think you're muted, Jack.
Oh, what's that? What's that, fellas?
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
making
just.
me tea.
Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, I was just saying.
We were just talking to nobody.
Oh, you'll have to talk to. Repeat what you said to nobody. I didn't hear.
I was just saying that we were midway on our crusade of decriminalisation there.
Yeah. I mean, I hope to just I hope to drop that link in the chat as it goes to that dangerous ideas talk in Sydney.
Oh,
that
yeah.
chap, that chap actually did a. Some people may have stumbled across it. There's a YouTube about. I think it's just called Addiction, and it's like one of these like cartoon animated things with somebody talking over the back of it. And I'm not sure. I should actually go and check. I don't think it's actually that dude that's doing the talk over, but it sounds like it's his research that they've used to base the video on. And the video is like a little 10-minute blam in your face, all the facts, here you are. Whereas that 59-minute or whatever it is seminar is a very much more in-depth and personal voyage into his own discovery about the global problem of decriminalisation, which has been a subject of mine for years. And just exploring both realms. So he looked in depth into the places where it is still heavily treated criminally, and in all of the places where it's now either partially or fully decriminalised.
Mm-hmm.
And the results of the differing results of those two systems are just staggering. The social implications of living under such a broad spectrum state of prohibition of so many different substances. I mean, there's obviously arguments against the decriminalisation of certain substances that could be seen in some respects as reasonable. But I would actually suggest that the results of some of the places that he's reporting on are the likes of Switzerland has decriminalised heroin.
Right.
Yeah, well, it came as a big surprise to me as well. There, you don't get you do get a prescription. You can't go and get your prescription filled out and take it away. They have sort of government-sanctioned injection centres where you go and get your dose. But it's completely unlike any of the sort of drug treatment programs that are available in this country, where they're all based on reduction and therapy. In their system, you're basically allowed to dictate your own dose, have as much as you want, whenever you want, as long as it doesn't exceed, as long as it's not like an overdose quantity, then you're allowed to have it. There's no pressure on you to reduce. And as well as that, they're supporting those users in funding employers to take them on as employees. And what they've found is that these users are naturally withdrawing themselves off of their drug of choice once the sort of chaos of their lives has been corrected by a state that's no longer treating them as if they're some sort of a criminal.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I was having a good conversation with a mutual friend of ours only a few weeks ago, and he was saying how he has a lot of people who help him out around the place where he lives, and quite a few of them are heroin addicts. But he said, I leave the keys in my car, the door's open to the house, they can come in and out whenever they want, and there's bottles of beer outside. If they want a beer, they can help themselves. And he said, do you know what? He said, I put my life on it. Not one of those guys would steal from me. Which is completely different to what you get when the situation is criminalised, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, from my particular sort of soapbox that I've stood on is what I see as the greater issue, which is simply because of the numbers involved, and that's of the segregation of the modern family down the parental and sort of children halves on the subject of drugs. So essentially, as soon as a child arrives into adolescence and begins to experiment in the world of drugs, often the parents are so um, uh, either ill-informed or ignorant, or just simply, have a very rigid opinion about the subject, that from day one things are already going wrong, and it's nothing at all to do with the law. Well, it is, but it's kind of more about parental understanding of the subject as it is.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I use the example of your sort of average inner city teenager. Probably in the region of 13 to 15. I would suggest that most teenagers have access to and the peer pressure desire to experiment with drugs of one sort or another. And I would suggest that the experience of that child, let's call them what they are, that child having to go to some backstreet dealer who probably sells lots of substances that aren't the substance that your child is going to seek out, that may be fairly harmless, but also lots of other substances. They're doing so for profit and have absolutely no care or consideration about your child's health or well-being, and that having acquired this substance that is so fashionable amongst his peer group, he's now really more subject to the guilt and fear of discovery by his parents than the fear of arrest, which may well completely ruin his chances of a career for life under the current system. So what we have is an initial an initiating experience that introduces that initiate into a world of paranoia, of needless fear of something that isn't dangerous. And I think that's a real damaging effect in society today.
Yes, it does. Well, particularly with what we've been talking about earlier. Yes, there can be some unpleasant effects, but compared to so many other things, the cannabis plant is pretty much a win-win situation for almost everyone.
Well, for he's now adult, but he was still officially classified as a child then. One of my boys has chronic ADHD, and he has a letter from his psychiatrist stating that he consumes cannabis as an aid for his condition, and finds it to be very effective, and is intending to continue to use it. And he withdrew himself off of his amphetamine-based meds around the age of sort of 13 or 14 without my knowledge or consent through the consumption of cannabis.
Wow, that is. I mean, that is a growing issue
and especially as an inner London kid growing up with ADHD. I mean, we were clearly aware of all of the statistics. He had something like a 98% chance of arriving in his late teens with a criminal record. He's completely avoided that. He's never visited a hospital accident emergency again. His likelihood of having received a serious injury were in the high 90s. And he also managed to receive an education which was in the low sort of tens of percents.
Wow.
And he's now got a steady girlfriend and is quite happily living his life. Again, something that's incredibly rare for a child of his severity of his condition.
Yeah, I mean, that is a condition that ADHD, I don't think I'd heard of it when I was at school. All right, it's quite a while back, but it's like so many of the modern conditions that seem to be so prevalent. they were just unheard of when we were younger. Yes, I realise they've given some different names and there are some different techniques for diagnosing things, but ADHD in particular, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome.
I think the problem with ADHD particularly was it became a bit of a pop psychology term. And as a consequence, it was a very popular thing to have your child. You know what I mean? It would be a very potent thing on any diagnostic doctor's mind not to come up with a conclusion that the parents are happy to hear. Yeah. Now, while you may not be happy to hear that your child's got ADHD, it's a big relief to know that you're just not bad parents.
Yeah, of course.
And so we have this whole situation where there's a whole raft of diagnosis of ADHD under the most marginal of definitions. With Michael, it was completely the opposite. He was about 2 points short of autistic.
All right.
So there was no question as to whether or not ADHD, A, was an appropriate diagnosis, or B, if it was even a correct, you know, even if there was such a disorder. Michael's a clear example that, yes, ADHD does exist, and yes, it can be very extreme in some forms, and is almost impossible to treat with normal medication. Not satisfactorily, anyway, certainly from a parent's perspective.
No, because the normal treatment for that is Ritalin, isn't
it? And as well, we were actually really closely studied by the ADHD clinic that we attended. We became the subjects of one of their sort of teaching groups. We were filmed for sort of distribution all around the world in this sort of training program, simply because we had the twins and only one of them was affected. And so there was this clear, stark sort of easily defined boundary that you have exactly the same familial conditions, dietary conditions, you know what I mean, housing conditions on the two twins, and yet one is affected and the other is completely unaffected. And so all of this sort of thing about it being parenting and this and, you know what I mean, diet and all the rest of it were obviously completely out the window for us as a family dealing with this issue.
Oh, wow. It's really encouraging to hear that your son has...
anybody that has a difficult child, even if it's not ADHD spectrum, please go Google the Webster-Stratton technique. Yeah, or the Webster-Stratton method. It's so easy to learn. It's easy to practice. It works. Whatever your challenging child is, Webster-Stratton is your answer.
Oh, excellent.
It's basically positive reinforcement techniques. That's it. Star charts, pat on the back when they do well. Don't tell them off when they don't.
Yeah, because what most children want is attention, and if the only way they get attention is by misbehaving, then they tend to misbehave more, don't they?
And the ADHD child is essentially a bottomless funnel for attention. They will simply suck every single ounce of attention out of every single family member until they are drained to the dry, and still want for more.
Oh wow!
Yeah. When you got a real challenging child, especially in a large family like ours, it was a real handful. You know what I mean? Family holidays were out of the question because they would be unbearable for everybody involved. And, all sorts of issues that needed dealing with. But I think we navigated them quite well. The boys are all really well rounded now, and everybody always tells us what admirable children we've got. Excellent. Fine, upstanding young men they are, and I'm really proud of that. Yes. Honourable sovereigns.
Yeah, excellent. I have been told, particularly one of your boys who friends met, as he's an absolute pleasure to meet and to talk to. And he said, I've never met a teenager that I can engage with so well.
Yeah, and all of mine are like that. I should mention here as well, my son, who's now an aspiring genetic engineer, currently studying in Glasgow, and got his first. I can't remember the correct term for it. When you publish scientific papers to the journals, often they're published in like a group or an et al. Format where there's a main publisher, the main author of the text, and then a whole group of researchers who have all contributed to that text. Well, ordinarily that's published in long format. Well, my Jake was published in the short format because he was the dominant author of not only the text but the research to accompany it. And he's extended the. In fact, it's been published twice now. And the boy's not even in his bloody mid-20s yet. He's extended. You know the ear on the mouse.
Oh,
remember the mouse with the ear on its back?
Yeah.
The lattice structure that they use to dope the stem cells onto to produce that. He's improved the usefulness, the longevity, and the efficacy of that particular lattice structure, and has made it far more likely to be able to be used in future. And when you add that to his previous published paper, which was the extension of the lifespan of adult stem cells, i.e. not fetal ones, from 48 hours to 6 days in the test tube, meant that the requirement for fetal stem cells, which have to come from aborted fetuses, is now no longer necessary, and that you can simply have a blood draw that will derive the stem cells that they need to do their modification on. Whether you agree with any of that or not, I would hope that at least having geneticists who are aware of the moral implication of what they're doing is absolutely crucial. And I know damn well that my Jake is one of the most moral people that I know.
That's absolutely incredible, Jack. I know a little bit about your scientific brain and your endeavours. I've heard.
I'm not an academic at all. I haven't even got 2 O levels to rub together. I barely even passed my CSEs. Remember back in the days?
Yeah. I got a few CSEs and O levels, but I thought I was quite sciencey till I heard you talking, and my brain just melted.
Well, again, I do my due diligence on that front. I have been reading the sort of science publications all my life and doing my best to avail myself of all the sort of latest research that's in the public domain. So I do try and keep up, and it is a matter of keeping up as well. Once you've got the sort of foundation, it's much easier to then sort of actually understand stuff that you're coming across sort of in the wild and make sense of it. So it's a bit like playing the guitar. You've got to put in the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Just Kev's having a bit of fun there on camera. I was just wondering if Colin or Jason, you've got anything you'd like to quiz Jack on while we've got him?
I'm dominating the conversation. I do apologise.
No, not at all, mate. Not at all. It's fascinating.
No, it's good listening. It's good listening to. It's just been flowing. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, I'm the same with it. I just want to know, what was that again? Was it Webster?
Was that
the technique for
yeah?
Oh, sorry. Oh,
agents.
that's yes, the Webster, WEBSTER, dash Stratton, STRATTON method. And if you put that into Google, you will come up with the Webster Stratton site, which has got really easy little doing your own family, don't involve any medical profession, working advice. It wouldn't surprise me at all to actually find that we're in video somewhere on that website. I've never actually done that search, but it was the Webster Stratton group that we were doing the research for. We worked with them for about 8 years.
Oh, crikey. That was quite a long-term project then.
Oh, Michael was diagnosed at an incredibly early age. He was under medical treatment from about the age of 4. We had to keep the boy alive.
I understand. This is what pricked my ears because I don't know if you know, but I've got two. One who's been already statement-headed as autistic. They all go to normal schools. I try and keep them as normal as possible. But my
Absolutely,
youngest one,
that's so crucial as well. Well done, you. That's not an easy task.
and it still is, and we're still. So I don't want to sort of go right into the basis of it, but what I've done is I taught. Well, I got my Jack doing kickboxing because I just had that bad thought. It's growing up through the education system myself. I know what it can be like, and they also got a lot of bullies. So I thought, I ain't going to let my Jack walk into there, not without being able to defend himself.
Oh, Kev, could you possibly mute your mic while you're bashing your kitchen to pieces there?
See,
Thanks, mate.
Not distracting at all.
No,
Sorry, Cole.
Fine. But anyway, as I was saying, I have problems with him. Not as much as I used to, but it's me 6-year-old that's really the problem. Because, like you said, you talk about family holidays and what have you. You've got no chance. No chance whatsoever. I mean, you even get, I don't know if you...
Family days out were even pretty much out of the question. We would go out on an entirely on a planned day out to somewhere for the day, and would be forced to turn around and come back within 20 minutes, half an hour of arriving there.
I fully understand it. I totally fully understand it, and it's how people react to you. Now I'm 6'6" and I'm nearly 20 stone, so I'm not a sort of unscary type of person. But you still get people talk to you like you're a piece of crap, and it's about time you got your kids in the line and all the rest of it. I've been there, and that's even just going shopping at Asda's or wherever it is you're going. And that's the thing where I wanted to see what this Webster and all that, because it's a thing for me to try and learn. Because
certainly, I mean, the key bit of that Webster Stratton technique is just purely positivity alone. What you've got to do is recognise every single time that you do any sort of a negative reinforcement. So if there's some behaviour that you disapprove of, that you respond to in any way, don't do that. Put that down. Don't touch that. Yeah, you've got to train yourself not to say that. And when they go to touch something, and then they look to you, and you don't react, and then they don't touch it, you go, well done, blimey. Normally you would have touched that. Well done. Go over here. You want to cuddle? Star on your chart. Yeah, and you just rotate their behaviour completely. It turns them around 180 degrees. I mean, you're still going to have a challenging child.
Yeah.
But now you'll have a toolbox with which to deal with those behaviours. And every time those behaviours raise their head, and you've found one thing that works, that's your spanner in your toolbox that you're going to keep pulling out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to give it a crack anyway, because I'm just about at my tether's end, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Sometimes you just put you know what I mean? You think, well, what have I done wrong? Is it me? The way I brought them, now I've got 4 boys and they all knock hell out of each other. Do you know what I mean? And
well, just to reassure you that it's statistically you are precisely 6% of an influence over anything that your child is. 94% of everything that your children become has absolutely nothing to do with you. It's societal. It comes from the schools. It comes from the things that they choose to eat, that they seek out to eat. All of those sort of things. as parents, we have very little impact on our children's lives, but we beat ourselves up endlessly for it.
Yeah, I can fully relate to that.
So essentially, again, if you're seeing errant behaviour within your children, it's often actually more appropriate to consider what it is that's not you and you as a parent that's not happening, but what that other 94% impact is having, and if there's any areas of that you can address. What I found having 4 boys was that their sort of structure of friends was very important, and at a very early age, I realised that developing relationships with the friends allowed you leverage over your children that you didn't normally have. So if you could explain to a friend why a particular behaviour was abhorrent and why it was so difficult, that the difficulty that you were having convincing the child not to carry out that behaviour could actually be imparted by a friend more effectively than you can do as a parent.
Yeah.
And especially with the challenging children, especially with Michael, all of their friends kind of understood that Michael had this problem. And so they were more than happy to help wherever they could in helping him.
So
Kids want to help each other.
That's sort of just hit me, really, because it's my kids. I haven't let mine out, to be honest with you. The only friends my kids really got then, if I look at it logically, is the ones that they got to school and all the rest of it. Because we don't let them out of the night. We don't, like, my kids don't run up and down the street outside, even though they could. We don't allow them out, and I should look at that as well, because I've been wrong.
Well, I mean, I had to send all of my children to school, knowing that school was mind control propaganda, and I had to bite the bullet and still send them all to school because I knew that school is where children become socialised now. Yeah. And to some degree, playing with the school friends after school is your chance to intervene between the process that's happening from the school to your child and how that's then expressed through behaviour. So again, we always did our best to make sure that the school friends were very welcome. We would act as a ferry service to go and collect them and deliver them, because often their parents were like you, wouldn't allow them out on the streets. So fortunately, we always had a car, a family-sized car, so we would often go and collect hordes of them and take them here or take them there and just try our very best again to develop personal relationships with each of those children in the same way that we did with our own. And so we made them feel entirely welcome, and we got a whole, I mean, after they're all like in their 20s now, and we got a whole raft of them that aren't my children or my partners, that all just know this place is home. You know what I mean? If they're ever like beaten up on the streets or whatever, it'll be my door that they come and knock on. And that also builds respect from your own children as well, because you looking after their friends is something that really does garner the respect of your children.
It's a lot to look at. I've since you've been on here, and I've sort of been fascinated with what you've been saying, to be honest with you. That's why I've just been stum, just taking it all in. But
well, it's really nice to be able to help somebody like yourself as well, because trust me, my friend, I was in exactly the same situation as you when mine were young. You know what I mean? This hadn't all worked out then. I was still facing the odds that I already knew. I mean, that was the worst thing. I was told when the boy was 4 years old, he's got a 98% chance of having a criminal record by the time he's 16.
Yeah, I've had
that. And they're pretty hard statistics to beat, but we beat them. He come pretty bloody close at times. Certain incidents with high-powered lasers and police helicopters. But out of the two of them, it's his twin that's actually ended up with the only minor criminal record, and that was writing "fuck Cameron" on a bloody bus stop during a student protest.
I think we can all identify with that. I'm sure those of us that haven't done something like that would dearly love to do it.
Mm. Oh, I was dead proud. That's my boy. Getting arrested at the student protest. That's my boy. Come on in, son. Have a cigar. Today you're a man, my son. Welcome to my world.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. We started out talking about CBD, and
Well, I mean, the ADHD is still part of that, because this is what I'm suggesting, is that certainly we had the support of my son's latest psychiatrist, because she could see the obvious advantages that he was gaining from it. And again, we can't give this out as any sort of a medical advice, but certainly there's the personal testimony of my son, who did it without my consent or permission, who simply saw it for himself and decided to try it, and it worked. And again, this also dials back into this situation with the teenagers experimenting with this, because it's certainly been my experience that the large proportion of people who find themselves with a particular substance of choice, whatever that substance is, the reason why that particular substance becomes their substance of choice is because it meets some need in them. Now, whether that be emotional, physiological, biological, whatever, that your child is identified with this substance doesn't need persecution and prevention. It needs understanding, comprehension. If your child is 13 years old and he's out smoking a spliff every weekend, well, first of all, question, is his peer group all out drinking bloody White Label and getting pissed and arrested every weekend, and he's the one that's not? Yeah, because it might be his way of escaping from that particular culture's more harmful aspects. And in which case it would be a very appropriate behaviour, and one that should be encouraged at all opportunities.
yeah, absolutely.
So it really is it's a matter of, we need to re-evaluate all of our roles and our kind of role paradigms, the roles that we expect of ourselves, and the roles that we expect of others, and the roles that we expect of our children. That's my we're kind of roaming into my zebras and donkeys territory here with the Homo novo, the new species of human. I swear our children are a species apart, or certainly many of them are. I suspect that we may have seen the bifurcation of the human species into two separate genuses. Zebras and donkeys.
Zebras and donkeys.
Yeah. Essentially, zebras and donkeys are the same animal. Yeah. But if you have a herd of zebras and a herd of donkeys on the plain, they don't interbreed. And the only reason why they don't interbreed is societal, not biological. You can get a Z-donk.
So they're all racist then? They're all racist. Well, that's what you're saying, aren't they? I mean, if they're the same, essentially the same animal, the only difference is aesthetic.
Well, it's actually slightly more subtle than that. It's actually the dominance hierarchy of the two species. The zebras have a masculine dominance hierarchy where dominant males gather harems of females, and in donkey culture, it's a more sort of standard horse herd mentality, which tends to be more matriarchal. So it's more that sort of subtle difference, and I see in a lot of ways the kids that I'm seeing that I consider to be this potential kind of, I don't know whether new species is a good metaphor. Yeah, I don't know necessarily that we're actually talking about a new species here, but certainly we're talking about a group of children who appear to be growing themselves up. And it seems to be a very organic process. And I've been absolutely fascinated watching all of the various sort of troops of teens parading through here and seeing the differences and the similarities. And their fabulous ability to self-organise is the thing that really, really has struck me, that is completely inconceivable to us as sort of teenagers. Is that, you know what I mean, when one of them enters into some errant behaviour, it's seen as errant by the entire group, and it's addressed immediately. There's no like sort of grumbling resentments are allowed. Everything is addressed openly and publicly and kind of honestly. Really very rewarding to watch. And I hope that's what society is going to be turning into. Because if these guys are anything to be sort of anything to be taken, then we've got a brave new world at last.
We can only dream, can't we?
I actually, honestly, this isn't something that I've just suddenly sort of struck up off the top of my head. This is actually a theory that I've been pursuing for probably 20 or more years in its sort of burgeoning form, and really sort of clarified. Well, I did some of my first radio shows 6-7 years ago on the subject, and so many people have come forward with like sort of confirmationary testimony of, the various sort of groups of children that they're seeing coming through. So something's afoot, and it seems to be happening everywhere, and it seems to be happening to all races at once. I don't know if you know, but the global crime figures have been dropping about 10% every 15 years for the last 35 to 40 years, and no one knows why. Doesn't matter what the political system it comes from. It doesn't matter if it's a dictatorship. It doesn't matter whether it's North Korea or Southern Ireland.
That's something that's not often mentioned. We're all
No,
told.
it really isn't, and especially not when they're trying to promote larger and better police budgets and forces constantly on us.
That's right.
We are becoming a more moral creature innately, and nobody quite knows why.
Well, let's hope that we're evolving in the right direction then.
Yeah, well, I think we are. I from a scientific standpoint, it is becoming more evident from the metadata analysis that everything that we think of as artificial, the sort of cities to the oil rigs to nuclear power plants, when they're actually compared with biological models, the maths absolutely is paralleled. So everything that we think of as unnatural and man-made seems to be still adhering to some sort of a biologically derived algorithmic model that it's all being constructed from. So to some degree, I suspect that everything that man does is, if not predetermined, it's kind of biologically ordained and therefore organic in its nature. So as artificial as some things seem, a lot of the time, I'm very much of the belief now that we're on some sort of an organic journey that we have very little actual meaningful control over, and it's more a matter of just like sitting back and enjoying the ride, guys.
Well, I changed the way I look at life a few years ago, Jack, and more particularly when I started talking on the radio. It was something I never ever dreamed I'd do. When I was asked to do it, I'm like, what? Me? What am I going to say? And I had a friend who I went for a beer with one night, and I told him I'd done a radio show, and he's like, wow, that's amazing. You never know where this is going to lead. Oh, you could be doing speaking tours around the world. And I'm like, well, actually, it just feels like I'm on this journey. Don't know where it's going, but I'm just going to let it unfold and see where it goes. And since then, I've always been one for making plans. And my plans have pretty much always gone to shit. And since I've stopped making plans and just letting life unfold in front of me, it does seem to have got a lot more enjoyable. And I'm meeting some fabulous people, and everyone on this call included in that group.
I once read the dictionary from start to finish, and it turned out the zebra did it. So, your zebra concept, that's what they're capable of.
I'd just like to let me just read this out to you. This is something that I found quite profound when I came across it. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Buckminster Fuller. He's the guy that invented the geodesic dome and is famous for having predicted the existence of carbon-60 about 30 years before it was isolated. But he lived his entire life without drawing a wage He used to take an allowance from his various companies that he could live on, and he travelled the world as a public speaker at universities, and was said to have circled the globe over 6 times in his kind of speaking career. But essentially, in the 1920s, he'd already lost one daughter to polio, and was sort of burgeoning sort of alcoholic, and had been kicked out of his job. His company had collapsed, and he was considering killing himself. And he had an epiphany. He was taken up in what he perceived as a white ball of light, and he heard this voice in his head: "From now on, you need never await temporal attestation to your thought. You think the truth. You do not have the right to eliminate yourself. You do not belong to you. You belong to universe. Your significance will remain forever obscure to you, but you may assume that you are fulfilling your role if you apply yourself to converting your experiences to the highest advantage of others." And the man lived out the rest of his days by that particular little thing there, and did such remarkable works that his dome huts in Africa are still keeping villagers cool in the daytime and warm in the night time, and requiring absolutely no energy to do so.
Yeah, and I'll wager throughout history there's been a million and one stories like that we don't know about.
Certainly, Buckminster Fuller was a man way beyond his time. Fascinating study in and of itself. You could spend a lifetime studying Buckminster Fuller's life's work.
Yes, he's certainly one to spend a bit of time looking at. I just noticed the time, and we're coming to the end of the 3 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to get the stream cut off, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. It's been absolutely.
I better shut up and let you lot actually say something then.
Well, all I was going to say is thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jack. And it was spur of the moment, and I'm just so glad that you joined us. And thank you also to Michael and Alonso, who've had to drop off the call. Thank you, Colin and Kevin, for your great input. And thank you, as always, Jason.
Right, the amount of guests we've had tonight, it's been a bit like Sean Murphy's show.
And Ollie, just keep with the personal testimony. Try and stay away from the medical advice and just say what you know from your own personal experience, and we're just going to be all right. Let's just keep on going, just telling the truth.
I think that's a great way to move forward, Jack. So thanks to all of you who took part in the show tonight. It has been an absolute humdinger. I'm really enjoying it. I'm even getting messages from as far afield as Canada saying, "Tell Jack he's an amazing guy." And that's from a hero of all ours, from Rick Dwyer. Thanks, Rick.
I've got some news for you, Rick. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. And I'd just like to thank everyone who's listening for bearing with us. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure all the others have enjoyed it. We've got Steve Smith coming up on Thursday talking about treating pets with CBD. I'm really looking forward to that one. And then we've got the Doc Rock's got Simon Spaniard and what's the name of the other? Simon Spaniard and Mark Moxham of You and Your Cash return to Doc Rock's radio show to just discuss an insider's view of insurance. That'll be a fascinating one. And then next week on Tuesday, we've got Tom Crawford and Guy Taylor coming for a bit of an update on what they're doing. And then on the Thursday, we have... Sorry, I can't read my own writing from who we've got on Thursday. So I'll leave it at that. Say thanks for listening, everyone. And thank you particularly to Nick Nomick, because he saw me fumbling earlier and he's given me a tune to play out on. So thanks, everyone. And if you'd like to all say good night, we'll play out with a tune.
Good night, everyone. Right.
And of course, anybody that needs to get hold of me, you know the various routes you can find me.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, and good night.